More than 500,000 Americans are homeless on any given night.
Oakland, California sure does have a homeless problem. Driving around town, there's homeless encampments all over the place. They're on the sides of the roads and dirt lots. There's long stretches of them on sidewalks. Some are in tents, some are in RVs, some are actual encampments with makeshift structures where hundreds of people gather into communities. I know you've heard about the homeless problem in Portland, Oregon. It's a situation that's just getting worse. We don't have an updated number of homeless in Portland today, but it's clear there's been a huge spike here. It's so bad, the city declared a homeless emergency. This place has gone from having an average of 6 large encampments before the pandemic to more than 100 encampments scattered throughout the city.
Welcome everybody to my channel. My name is Rainer and this is Rainier Books. Today I'm here with another single review of books that I've read. A book that I finished actually about a week ago. It was a buddy read. This is Abundance by Jakob Guanzon. Poverty in the United States is a topic that I have returned to very often. I'm a German living in Sweden and I'm deeply European. I've traveled to the United States 2 times in my life. Recently, actually, in 2017 and 2018. And both trips took me to the Pacific Northwest, but also to California, to Oregon, and to Washington State. So the whole coast. I didn't see the whole coast, but I've seen cities like Seattle, I've seen Portland, I've seen San Francisco, I've seen the coast, Rockaway Beach, and beautiful places out there, Tillamook. But I've seen poverty, and I've seen the enormous difference of class in the US, which is so astonishing with European eyes, because we have poverty too, we have homelessness too, but it is not that visible, it's not that perpetrating your mind when you come to, for example, Grand Central Station in Portland, Oregon, and you see, when you walk over to the Greyhound station and you see all those homeless people living in their tents or in their sleeping bags or even without anything, lining up there, thousands of them in Portland, a couple of thousands more in San Francisco, and also very much in Seattle and in all the coast states, at least, of the United States. There's a lot of homelessness, and homelessness is one of the topics of Jakob Guanzon's novel, Abundance. This is about a father and his son. It's about Henry, who is in his 20s somewhere. He has an 8-year-old son, 7-year-old son, whom he has called Junior, and Junior's 8th birthday is coming, and the father and the son have gotten kicked out, have gotten evicted from a trailer park, and now they live in a Ford pickup truck. And the father wants to spoil his son, wants to give his son a nice birthday, so he takes him to McDonald's in the beginning of the novel. But in the beginning, the father is in a toilet, in the washing room, as they say in Canada, at McDonald's, and he's washing himself because going to McDonald's, to a fast food restaurant, and wash yourself is the only option for him for personal hygiene. And then he treats his son to a McDonald's meal, they go to a motel, and every chapter of this book is headlined by the number of money that's left to live on. $89.34. Not visible. $89.34 is the first chapter of this novel, which is then, after a short while, after the beginning, alternated with the story, the backstory of Henry, so that we can understand what brought him into this homeless situation, experiencing poverty already for him as a little child with his father, with bad guys that he met. He worked for this guy called Al, and then he sort of he fell in love with a girl called Michelle. Also, she is coming from deep poverty somewhere in the Midwest of the United States, and they have a relationship, a very difficult relationship. They have a son, and then things happen between them, and so they split apart for a reason that I don't want to reveal because it's here inside the book. It's a very sad story. It's a super sad story, this book Abundance, because it shows actually, and Jakob Guanzon is showing this in a very consequent way that it's almost impossible to live the American dream in the year of 2020 or 21 in the United States. Because if you are born poor, if you are born homeless, you will be homeless. And the future of Junior doesn't look so bright, right? There are two incidents in this book, or several incidents, that are very important to the action. One is that Henry has the hope of getting a job. He has a job interview for the first time in weeks and months. He has been invited to a job interview and he wants to desperately get this job, but it's so difficult to look good, to look tidy, to play a person in normal relationships and in a normal situation with a home to a potential employer. And he also he's sleeping with Junior in the night after the McDonald's visit, the birthday night of his son. He's sleeping with him in a motel, in a very shady motel, because he cannot afford anything that's more expensive. And in shady motels in the US, I don't know if you have slept over in shady motels, I didn't. But apparently there are shady people in shady motels. So there is an encounter on the parking lot of this motel, which also changes the story significantly, which I'm not going to describe here. But Guanzon has sort of depicted in a very concentrated way, very much focusing on his main character, Henry, his son, and his backstory, explaining how this happened, how this man ended up in this situation that is hopeless. He's a normal guy like you and me, Henry. He makes some bad choices. He makes even some bad actions, which are going to haunt him. But everybody of us that has, Jakob explained in an interview that I saw on YouTube, everybody of us makes bad decisions and makes even bad moves from time to time in a life, during a lifespan. And the starting point, which I found very interesting, was for him to write a book that deals with poverty in the US, that starts at McDonald's, which is one of the most common places where Americans go to, and that ends with a finale at Walmart, which is also one of the most frequent places Americans go to. So this is between the beginning at McDonald's and the end at Walmart. And what's happening there, you have to read, you have to discover yourself. Guanzon himself is a young writer from Minnesota, from the state of Minnesota, who lives in New York. He has studied sociology and he has also studied the fine arts, and I think at Columbia University. His book actually is published at a small publisher, Grey Wolf in Minnesota, in his home state. And it was nominated, it was longlisted for the National Book Award, and very well deservedly so. It's a great book, it's a great novel that is giving you sort of a punch in your stomach to really reflect about things. When I see news in the United States very often, when I watch news on YouTube from Portland, the city where I've been to twice, which I regard sort of as my American place to land to, they always speak of the homeless people as the problem for the others. Like, there was a homeless camp in Northwest Portland that police has removed, as if they would remove the people. The problem of those people is being homeless. And if you remove them from Northwest to Northeast or Southeast or Southwest or whatever, you remove maybe the problem for the other people who say, we don't want this dirty people there, we want those criminals there, whatever they say about homeless people, but you haven't removed homelessness as an issue. And I don't see any president in the United States recently in the last years, when I have followed American politics, who has really tried something to abolish homelessness. And I think this is an issue. This makes Abundance, to me at least, also a political book, because it shows that whatever you do in a political way, you cannot change the fact that the American dream has sort of, actually it has never existed. It is ridiculous for most of the people who live in these kind of poverty situations, and they're not hundreds, there are thousands, there are tens of thousands, and there are hundreds of thousands of people across the whole country. Last Saturday, I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts. This is Reveal from the Center of Investigative Reporting and PRX, a podcast called Reveal, and they had show on last Saturday was Handcuffed and Unhoused. Portland, Oregon. In Portland, Oregon, Unhoused people make up at most 2% of the population, but they account for nearly half of all arrests. Cities have long turned to police as the mechanism for making homelessness disappear. But arrests don't solve a housing crisis. That says also not only me, but also Reveal with its reporter Melissa Lewis, who tells the story she has researched for months on the streets of Portland. Listen to that. I put a link down below. And this is also the topic of abundance. The attempt to explain how people can end up there and how difficult it is to get out of there, and that these people are not necessarily criminals and problems, but they have problems and we should help them because we are a society and we should practice solidarity. A short part of abundance. Tuned out that following mom's diagnosis, Pop had refinanced the mortgage into a home equity loan, the distinction of which Henry didn't understand other than it is now permitted lenders to collect payments from him, the estate's executor. Signing away his childhood home at a gauging loss was only the beginning. The lawyer had also explained that theirs was one of 30 states with something called a filial responsibility statute, which saddled Henry, the surviving adult child, with all of his parents' unpaid medical bills. This figure was mountainous. Mom's diagnosis had made Papa desperate, rash, and so no expense had been spared. Even after refinancing the mortgage, he'd signed off on tens of thousands of dollars, which he didn't have or could ever repay for whatever cutting-edge experimental treatments were suggested by one referred specialist to the next. And now, on top of Mom's expenses, even though Papa had been pronounced dead on arrival, Henry owed another $2,000 for the ambulance that had transported Papa's still warm carcass from a job site to the hospital. After an estate sale, all that remained in Henry's possession were this check, the plane container, and his parents' library. The life insurance payout the collectors couldn't legally claim, the ashes and books they hadn't wanted. That's how you can end up in poverty in the United States, in 30 states. And Jakob Guanzon has said that he had a lot of luck getting a scholarship to Columbia and that he could study. And he worked in Minnesota with working people to finance a bit of his studies. And he said that I could have been any one of them. I could have lived a working life, and I was just lucky. I'm not more intelligent than they are. I'm not better than they are. I just had luck. And I could have ended up in a working life. I could have ended up, if I had a worse situation I was born into, I could have ended up like Henry in abundance. He wanted to sort of do an experimental take on how his biography could have turned out if he had grown up in a different circumstance. So this is Abundance, a great novel about American poverty. It's not the only one. There's so much to read about this topic, and I think it's so important that we see those people not only on the streets, but we also see those people in literature because they are a huge part of our present. Abundance is a gripping novel about a father and a son, and about fatherhood, about trying to be decent, trying to be good, but failing because of the other circumstances that you're living in. Read this and you will be not happy, you will be sad, but I think it's necessary reading. These stories and these men and women and even children are everywhere around you. Thanks very much for watching this review. If you read it, if you have read it, please put a comment down below what you thought about it. And I hope to see you very soon with a wrap-up and another review. Thanks very much. Stay safe. Omicron is lingering around us. Bye-bye.